Well, hello, Madcappers. We are going to pretty up a hat today, and you can pretty up any hat that you're going to sew that has a band in the middle, the way that our patterns do. You can easily sew on a bow, or you can add a bow with a safety pin. And that's what we used to do when we would sell these hats at all the different festivals and shows that we did in the summertime. We would pin the bow from behind, just catching the back of the casing or the center of the bow and not visible from the front of the hat. A bow really adds a statement of wow to a hat, and we do have a simple, easy way to make the bow like the one I'm pinning on now. But we also have a way that I'm going to show you today where you can just build that casing right into your hat band, and you'll always have a bow on your hat and a brim that can be worn turned up or down. A bow makes a hat extra pretty, and customers love extra pretty. And when you're finished, you can sew it on with a hidden little couple of stitches, or you can make your bow a lot bigger than the one that I've made on this hat. Best thing to do ideally would have been to start this process I'm going to show you before I sewed the back seam of this band. But hey, better late than never, right? While I was sewing this hat, I thought, oh, I should film this bow making process. And I'm glad I did. So the center of our bow, or the bow casing, we're going to attach right to the band. And our bow needs two parts, the actual bow and the casing. And the bow is very straightforward. It's just a long piece of fabric folded in half. We'll leave a bit of the bottom open. So I'm just going to fold it in half again to find out where that point is at the bottom on the seam that I will leave open, and I'll cut a small notch there. And I'll leave about an inch or 3 centimeters open, spacing out that little part in the middle, the little notch. Centering the notch in the opening and sewing on either side up to the fold. And for my center or my casing, I'll just take a piece of fabric, a scrap from my project that's about the same length as my band and about 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters wide. For the kids, you can make it a little bit wider for the adult version. So for my bow center or my casing, I'm just clipping up at the top here with the right sides together, and I'll sew that long seam and turn it right side out. And for my bow, I'm using a piece of fabric for my kids that is about 7 inches long and about 5.25 inches wide. And in centimeters, that works out to about 18 centimeters long and just over 13 centimeters wide. So I'll fold it back in half, right sides together, and I'm going to clip at the notch that I cut, just to remind myself not to sew there. And we'll sew our casing or our bow center. I call it a casing because the bow will slip through on either side of this piece because it's going to get folded on itself, and that's how we make the little center of our bow when we sew it onto the hat, which you're going to see in a minute. And I'm just going to finger press it, so I'm placing that seam in the middle on one side, and that's going to be our wrong side. And now I will sew up the bow. And now I'm going to go around the bow, starting at one of the top corners where the folded edge is, and sew along that raw open edge, sewing through the 2 layers with my normal seam width of about 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter, leaving an opening just a little bit more than an inch or about 3 centimeters, centering that little notch I made for the center of my bow in between my opening, and finishing up in the other corner. Trim down those corners, and I'll turn my bow right side out, and I will probably use my knitting needle to help me with that. so I can get at the corners. Now the first bow that I showed you at the beginning of the video I had pressed, but this one I'm going to leave kind of fluffy, and I kind of like bows that aren't pressed. So we're just going to use our fingers to make fold lines where we need to. So I'm creating a slightly visible fold line that I'll be able to follow along when I start to sew. And next I'm going to pull out some thread from my upper thread and about the same length from the bobbin thread. So I'm going to have a double piece of thread that's about 10 inches long at least, or 25 centimeters. And I'm going to sew from the center top down to the center bottom. My notch will be underneath my foot there in the seam, and I'm going to leave the same length of thread on the other end. So now I have one straight line of sewing down the middle of my bow with a long piece of double thread on each end, and I'll just use my fingers to make a pretty gather, deciding how many folds and pleats that I want in my bow. And once I'm happy with the way that it looks, I'm going to take those two pieces of thread and I'm going to wrap one pair around in one direction and the other pair in the other direction. And I can leave a little gap in between the two sets of thread if I want a little bit of a wider pinch in the middle. And I don't have to pinch it as tightly as I did. I can have a loose gather in the middle as well. And I'll just finish off by tying those ends of thread together in a double or triple knot and trim the ends. And there you have it, a simple, easy, beautiful little bow for our kid's hat. And now to attach the casing or the center of the bow onto the band. Now I've cut a notch at the front of my band, so that's my center front where you see that notch. And I'm just going to put my bow casing just off to the side. Now for kids it's kind of cute to have it right at the very center, but for the adult hats I always put my bows a little bit more off to the side than this one is going to be. I find that's just more flattering, but that's just me. You can do this however you would like. And like I said, I should have ideally done it before I sewed the back seam up on the band. It would have been easier. But these thoughts come to me randomly to film what I'm doing, so I think you get the picture of how this is done. And so we go up as far as we want to go, and that, to me, that's just above the top stitching that's in this band. And you go up one side, you pivot 90 degrees, go across the casing on the wrong side, down the other side, and now we just fold over that extra bit of casing to make a little channel to put our bow into and sew that side down. Trim the extra away with our scissors. And now we're ready just to continue making our hat. Whatever hat we're making. Whatever hat we're making that we want to add a bow to, we just continue along, and that's how it would look. And I'll just tuck that bow in to show you how it's going to look. And I think you know how it's going to look. It's going to look so pretty. Put a bow on it, everything looks nicer with a bow. Yep, I like that. So I'm going to take the bow out and I'll finish my hat. I'll put the bow back in. And there you have it, a beautiful kid's hat with a bow. And the hat that I was making in this video is the Kids Big Brim Sun Hat pattern on our channel. Thank you so much to our sweet model, Franny. Oh, you are awesome. And thank you so much to our awesome patrons as well. We couldn't do it without you and our channel member. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We're Madcap Hats there as well. Super thanks are always greatly appreciated. Like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. My name is Tori Capes. It's been a pleasure to show you my bow technique today, and I will be showing you lots more as we're just getting started. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye.